Welcome to Grandstand Golf. I am Kevin Bapty and I'm joined by my brothers Adam
Hey, what's going on, guys? First billing for me this time. I love it.
and Craig.
Hey guys, how we doing?
So this is a bit of a special episode here. We're going to be reviewing the much hyped and anticipated Tiger HBO documentary. Episode 1 just dropped last night and we've all had a chance to watch it now. So we thought we would give you our initial thoughts and feelings on what we thought based on what we knew about Tiger before and any new revelations that might have come out of this. So guys, why don't we kind of start it off by talking about our, I guess, Tiger fan levels, you could call it.
Yeah, sure.
I think anybody
Our initial
who's
position
watched,
going into the document.
our initial position, yeah. I think anybody who's watched or listened to our stuff know that I'm the resident Tiger homer. So being the oldest one of us, I was kind of, I think I was 15, 16, 17 when he was really getting big and starting to win majors, win his Tiger Slam. So I was very, very much in that Tiger Mania camp. Craig, you being the next oldest, what was your...
Yeah, so I mean, I was more, I was little bit younger at the time. To me, it was it was the Yankees, it was the Lakers, and it was Tiger Woods. And if you were a good person, you cheered against those teams. They were all the dominant ones that just won every time, and it was super boring. So, I was a natural, and being a younger brother of someone who is the biggest Tiger fan and a huge contrarian, it was just natural for me to root against him. I remember a few bets over the years where it was Tiger versus the field in majors, and for a while there, I don't think I was coming out ahead.
Going with the field.
Easy money. And then Adam, you obviously you came around a little later.
Yeah, I'm the youngest one. I'm the babyface one here, obviously, as you can tell. And first off, we're all junior golfers. We've all been golfing our entire lives. So we're golf fans initially. But in terms of Tiger, I mean, my kind of interest in golf is kind of like up and down, ebbs and flows. But I would say I'm a little bit younger for all this Tiger Slam. I mean, I was still just a kid, 10, 11 years old when that was happening. Really into the video games later on. We're talking Tiger Woods 07, that was my jam.
But Kevin was more of a Tiger Woods 04, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was more of an 04
There
guy.
you go.
That's the classic one that still holds up today.
They were still connected to the console. You couldn't be that far away from the TV.
Oh man, Tiger Vision, you could be as far as you wanted on those greens though. You could drop a ball from 75 feet if you had Tiger Vision on.
And some classic courses on that, like made up courses. I think it was a Predator or something, but I digress. Going into this documentary, there's a lot of things I didn't know. So in terms of, I'm a huge golf fan, but there's some things I definitely learned in this first episode of the doc.
Yeah. So I think on that front, one of the ones for me that stood out early, I knew, come the US AMs, I knew he was a huge deal, but I guess I didn't really appreciate how much, at 12, 13, 14, 15, I knew he was winning a lot of the tournaments for his age groups and those kind of things, but there's one clip they showed where he was signing autographs and he looked like he was about 14, 15 years old. And that was he has always been in this.
Was that LA Open as an amateur or something like that?
So that would have been, I think it was 92 that they flashed for that one. But that was the one that really surprised me, was just how much hype there already was around someone who, he would have been 16-ish at that time?
Yeah, really, he was somebody who, and they did a good job, I think, portraying it, but somebody who was always in the spotlight. He was, he had media attention, obviously, from the time he was 2 years old, but I think it was pretty constant. And they obviously make a point of portraying that as being a major influence in his life.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to get too much into this half of the documentary because we know what's going to be coming, but it's a story. It really is sort of like the origin story is how it starts out, and the roles of the parents is huge in both ways.
Yes.
Sorry, you look like you got something.
I always got something to say, but I'll jump in, I guess, because he says, the Tiger Woods story. I feel like is a really hard story to tell in 3 hours. So it is interesting, and we got 90 minutes of it. I think we're gonna get another 90 minutes next week. It could easily be a 10-hour, 10-part kind of series here, I think, to cover his entire life, just because we could have had one episode before he even played a US Am. I feel like an hour worth of content. And I think that's where we need to start off with Earl's speech at the beginning, because that's
Earl's whole I think the whole approach that Earl had, that Tiger was going to be the next Gandhi, Buddha, Jesus, like the Messiah, and just how, almost how like out of touch that is with, obviously it is because of Earl that Tiger is who Tiger is now, but like to think that he is going to become, and maybe someone, a sports figure could become that, but no, like you everything you did was to build him up to be a great golfer, not to be the next, great
Gandhi.
like great human,
I think his quote was, "He will bring an humanitarianism to this world they have never seen." Like, how can you put that? Like,
how can you put that on your kid?
And the bridge between the different races was the other one I had written down.
And Tiger's just like, man, like I played golf like really well. Like, what else do you want me to do?
Yeah. So that's what. First, let's back up a bit. Adam, you said this could be a 10-hour, 10-part thing. I agree with you, and I hope that one day there is that in a Last Dance type fashion. But I think to do something like that, you need Tiger to be involved. And I think right off the bat, we need to establish that Tiger was not involved with this. And it's not hearsay. There's a lot of people who are close to him, obviously, that were involved in this. But, there is Tiger's perspective to consider as well, right? So, this is one portrayal of it, and I think that I'll make some notes as to where I think that they definitely took a few creative liberties, let's say. As an example, when they were telling the story of Tiger and Phil in the 2001 Masters, and they talked about how the drive on 13 and that story, and how it was just kind of crushing to Phil, and he couldn't really come back after that. But then the next few clips they showed to kind of show that Tiger's pulling away and dominating was like on
10.
11.
Yeah. Well, they show the drive on 10, and I was telling my wife, I was like, well, that's not right, because they're talking about how 13 crushed his spirit, and then that's 10, and then that's 11. They show the approach shot, and I'm just like,
exactly.
You're building a narrative here that any golf fan, anyone who's watching up to Augusta golf knows that this is not how this plays out.
Exactly. So I think that in itself kind of shows you that this wasn't necessarily made for like the hardcore golf fan. I think my wife enjoyed watching this
I think we all watched it with our wives, didn't we?
Yeah. And which also, that was a different aspect, because as parents now too, you're watching, a story of two very overbearing parents, and trying to mold the child in their view, and I guess you could say the pros and cons of that, I guess. He's obviously achieved a lot, but at what cost? That's the whole story.
Before we get too far away from Augusta, so the 97 Masters that they show, 15. So the first day he's not playing well apparently, and they get to 15. That approach, we have so many people complaining about distance in the game right now, but like that approach shot, he was down at the bottom of that hill. I was like,
oh yeah,
has he laid up here and he's hitting his third in and he's making a birdie? No. I don't want to hear people complaining about distance in the game today when you watch him hit a pitching wedge or a gap wedge into that par 5.
But the thing was, I guess at the time, is he was hitting it so much further than everybody else, right? He was going after it like nobody else was playing that way. He was the first. He came up there and he just was smashing it by people, and Augusta kind of panicked a little bit.
That's an aside for sure, but like his club face was smaller than your fist.
Well, no, I guess I mean like, so you look at that, and I think Augusta has done as good a job as anyone in making sure that you can't overpower Augusta, and it's not just a matter of making everything longer. Like, yes, they have made things longer, but they've also like narrowed strategically in the right places, and they've done a lot of really smart things.
So you're injecting the distance debate into this Tiger recap.
Well, you know, we've got one lined up.
Somebody kick off his soapbox so he kick it away.
So why don't you guys kind of tell me what your most revealing or surprising moment, I guess, from the episode 1 here was?
Well, go ahead, Adam, because mine kind of builds off of yours, I think.
Well, I guess mine was, I knew a lot about Tiger, the golf, and I knew the scandal that kind of has changed his life forever, but I didn't really know leading up before, like kind of 2000 to 2006, how much his relationship changed with his father, and kind of the deep roots that were there. And of course, like you said, Kevin, when we don't have all the characters telling the story, we don't have the whole complete picture. So we have what we have for this documentary, and we have, it seemed like his military friend from that one golf course that they played on, and he was talking about his infidelity, Earl's instructing these women and going back to the Winnebago for cocktails. I either didn't know that story or completely forgot. That was a surprising moment for me, for sure.
Yeah. And that was, I was going to say the same thing. Both obviously the Earl situation, but then this person who was at the time the young pro. I just thought that whole series of so it felt like he was being candid, but it almost felt like he had sort of rehearsed, or like it just felt like a little bit like, oh, like, I'm going to take a second, like, I'm sorry, but, or like,
sorry, champ, I think he said.
It just felt a little bit insincere, even though I think it was candid, if that makes sense. Like, I don't disagree with the truth of it. It's just, it felt like the emotions that I was seeing did not seem to match what he was saying, and sort of regretting how candid he was being and all those type of things.
So I kind of agree. Like, I don't think, I don't necessarily agree that it wasn't sincere, but I think it's probably something that he's rehearsed many times, and perhaps it didn't seem as candid, but I'm sure there is a lot of regret in kind of his actions, and
but it's sort of like he knew before going to that interview that day, he knew that he was going to get into that. So it was sort of like it seemed like he was putting on a bit of a show of
honestly, I didn't really get that.
I might be overreading. I might be looking too far into that.
And maybe it was. I mean, who's to say? And how do you know really what the incentive for these people to participate in this documentary are, like what it is in the first place, right? It was a little bit of an interesting collection of people. I think they did a pretty good job of getting people that were close to him at different points in his life, though. And that probably leads me to my most, I've consumed a lot of Tiger stories and books and podcasts and everything, content, over the years. So there wasn't, I did know a lot about, Earl's infidelity and that sort of stuff. But one of the people that I found interesting was, I guess Dina is her name. I'm not
Dina
really
Parr.
Sure if it's Dina. Yeah. His high school girlfriend. That was an interesting portrayal that I hadn't really seen in other sources that I've consumed. and obviously the home videos of hers were something I don't think many people have seen in the past, but so those were pretty funny.
But it's you get a sense of like the human that Tiger is, like
totally, you totally do, and like she seems quite genuine.
It makes me sad.
I thought
it does 100%.
It does,
yeah.
And even the breakup note there, that was a pretty rough way to end a 3-year relationship.
So 3-year relationship.
So
I did write this down, so if I can read off the note here, I had to go back a couple times. But my parents and myself never want to talk or hear from you again. I feel used and manipulated from you and your family. And then her response to the camera was like, they stole his sweetness from him. Like she was taking Tiger off his path, that Earl, and his mother.
Well, I mean that letter was
Tida.
written with one or both of his parents standing over his shoulder as he's writing that letter.
It seems that way, yeah.
You almost want to like circle like the first letter of each line and be like, is there a secret message in here?
Yeah, help me.
Yeah.
But like, as will come out, as he built up all these walls around, I mean, I think there's a couple aspects to Tiger building up walls afterwards, but once he was no longer able to be himself with his own parents, and like that having to, okay, like, maybe he was getting to be a bit of a kid and just have like a fun, happy-go-lucky time when he was and it genuinely looked like that in those videos that you saw, and you see the downside of the way that his parents chose to bring him up, is that they were determined that nothing was going to get in the way of his golf, and in doing so, he no longer, it looked to me like maybe not they stole his sweetness, but he no longer was able to like be that person who just genuinely, and I don't know what he was like behind closed doors with his family, but it just seemed like maybe that youthful naivete was taken from him in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And that's, like you say, that's one thing that they have portrayed very much in this version of Tiger's story, is that it was a plan, and he, they wanted him to stick to the plan. And I think the kind of person he was is he wanted to please them. And so he stuck to the plan. And I mean, let's face it, the plan led to him being an absolutely fantastic, probably best ever golfer. So,
but so on that note, like, I don't think that plan, there's a lot of parents out there that has the plan for their kid to be the professional athlete. And once the kid gets to a certain age, they're like, no, like, I'm so done with this. I'm going to do my own thing, and the only thing this has done is destroyed my relationship with you guys. But like Tiger, there, he became obsessed with golf, and so like I think
he completely bought in. Yeah.
And that's what made it a success, is whether because they got lucky and they had a kid who happened to get super into the plan that they had for him,
and not to mention was naturally
gifted. Yeah. But it's not like this plan is something that is replicable unless you happen to have another super gifted person who chooses to latch on and become obsessed with the thing you want them to become obsessed with.
So I have a buddy who his plan was always to make his son the best kicker that has ever, the best NFL kicker. He was just going to train him to be a kicker or a punter from the time he was young. I don't know if he ever stuck to that plan after he had kids, but I always thought that was a pretty good one.
We'll need an update.
It's pretty niche.
As one of as a youngest brother here, and something early on in his career and in the documentary is maybe something I missed in his career was kind of the race card that was played. From the Nike ad, the Hello World, and I wouldn't be allowed on some golf courses, to the Oprah interview, Cablinasian, he called himself, and he's not African-American, Cablinasian. That's something that I don't really remember. And I mean, this documentary, I think, did a good job of portraying that.
Yeah, I was really hoping once they went there and they were talking about, the difficulty with his identity and him choosing not necessarily at one point to not necessarily come out and say I'm black and was it Brian Gumble? Is that who that was?
Yeah.
Who said that he wished that he did say that. I was thinking, I don't know if you guys remember this, but the race draft, the racial draft from the Chappelle show.
Yeah, the Chappelle show.
I forget who he ended up getting drafted by, but I was really hoping they were gonna have that on there on the HBO documentary.
I missed that one. But just another weight he had on his shoulders that I didn't really appreciate, especially I think earlier in his career.
Yeah, and I mean almost. Yeah. They talk about it after he won the Masters, that all of a sudden all of those burdens were thrust upon him. And I think he's handled that pretty darn well. He hasn't shied away from it, but he hasn't let that be his only identity,
I think it's kind of hard for us to say too, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's a tough topic to really speak on as a white guy that hasn't had a lot of those struggles in our lives, right? So
yeah,
or had to deal with those kinds of things. So,
but
I certainly can't criticize him at all.
Yeah,
it did for sure. So what else did you guys find surprising about this?
Sorry, I was just looking it up. He was taken with the number 1 pick in the racial draft.
For shizzle. Yeah, that was a pretty funny bit.
I mean, it's just like, there's so many different things. This is why it could be a 10-part series for me, because there's the golf Tiger and then there's personal life Tiger. And there's people want to paint him as a villain in his personal life, possibly on the golf course as well, because he had that kind of step on your throat, kind of cutthroat mentality. Not really friendly on the range with other players. And then his obviously personal life went crash and burn, as we saw, or we're going to see, I think, in part 2.
Oh, spoilers. As we're watching this, my wife is like, I'm like, oh, like, I think, better than most as soon as the clip comes up. And she's like, man, you guys stop giving me so many spoilers. I'm like, sorry, babe, it's the 97 Masters.
But there's the villain, and then there's also this victim side with his upbringing. And it seems to be really polarizing. You're either in one camp or the other, but I think it's a really complex thing that
the human story.
It's a human story that is still evolving, obviously, but you can't paint it with just that brush. Like, it's a very complex story, and that's why you can break it down, because there's personal, there's golf, there's all these different angles to it with his upbringing. But it's a complex story, his life.
It is a very complex story, and I think that's why it's so captivating for so many people, right? Like, that you can't, when he was doing what he was doing early in his career, winning every other time he played, if not more often, that's what created this Tiger, and he was doing it in ways that nobody had ever seen before, or nobody could remember seeing. Maybe Jack did that, but it wasn't in the age.
His early swing was so violent and so, like, holy,
it was unbelievable. I love that there's a pretty famous like Azinger clip where he's like, I'd never seen him actually hit a shot before, and I was playing with him, and so I turned around and I was like, let's watch this shot. It's like, and he hit it, and I just turned to my caddy and said, holy shit. It was there was something about it. Faldo kind of references it there in the doc, where he says all the attention, it just gravitated towards him. It always just gravitated towards him, and as a rookie,
97,
and then and then he delivered. So it was that's what created the phenomena, and then when it became, I think that reached a massive amount of people, and sports fans and golf fans, and then when episode 2 rears its head, then it reaches everybody. It reaches pop culture and gossip columns and everything else, right? So it kind of has something for everybody, the story.
I kind of wish.
Do you think that do you think it has been a fair portrayal thus far? Like, I think we'll see a lot more of that once we see the second part. But
I think there were some parts that were a little smutty, maybe, that didn't necessarily have to be, like when they're talking about the 2001 Masters again, how they mentioned that Tida didn't like Phil and called him hefty instead of lefty. Like that was just, I was like, that doesn't really need to, I don't see what that's adding to the story right now, other than it's just sort of seemed like a bit of gossip.
I think it is further defining who she is.
Yeah, because I think it was very Earl focused, but you also like it's more. There's both parents kind of created Tiger.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my thought. Is that it's thought that it was a little bit salacious in parts where, but it's creating a narrative. Let's face it. Like we were saying about the order of the shots at Augusta there. Like it's creating what it wants to portray.
See, I didn't feel it was salacious. I mean, I think that in some ways, I think it's more just, it's a salacious story in a lot of ways, like the dramatic narrative of Tiger Woods' story is salacious in terms of like you want to watch it, you're captivated by the story. And I think they did a fairly good job of not presenting him as a hero or a villain, and just trying to show that he's a human that was influenced by these things in his life, and a little bit, as much as they're able to pull up a bit the curtains behind the scenes. Obviously, I don't think they don't have Tiger. They don't have a lot of people close to him. They did get some people, like Steve Williams was there, which I'm surprised Hank Haney wasn't. But
I think you needed Stevie or someone that was really close with him for a while. Like you couldn't just have Faldo and like you couldn't just have competitors. You needed someone that was kind of beside, like.
Yeah,
if someone needs to tell Tiger. The golf Tiger story.
Yeah, I mean, I did read some earlier reviews of this, I guess, from people who had seen an early showing of this, or a sneak peek, or whatever you want to call it.
Where's our copy? HBO, come on!
They must have mailed it to the wrong address, or
it's a busy time of year.
I don't think they're mailing these things.
I mean, email address. But I kind of I liked it more than I thought I would, based on what I had read. So
yeah,
in that sense, I didn't think it was as slanted as I thought it might be. We'll see when we get to the next part.
Well, so I sort of feel like there's going to be Tiger fanatics who feel like, and that's why I'm curious that you call it salacious. Is like, I feel like it's going to be the hardest for the ones who like see him as a larger than life figure to see him, like see the messiness that went into that.
Yeah. I mean, you guys know me though. Like, even though I'm a huge homer, it's not like I shut my ears to the.
Yeah, you don't reject it. Yeah.
No, I'm not posting him up there as like who I want to be as a husband. And yes, that is how I want to swing the golf club, and chip in if I ever get to 16 at Augusta. That's what I want to do. But he's a person with flaws, like we all are. So it's not as though I have him on a pedestal or anything, other than as a golf fan, him being a golfer. So that's just because of the moments he's given me as a golf fan, where I got to stand up with my buddies, fist pumping in the rooms, because he just did something, amazing, right? So, no, it's part of the story, and I can take it, Greg. Don't worry.
I was gonna say, it is cool to see the fist pumps through the ages. Like with any Tiger video documentary, it's always cool to see that, from his first am win with the creamsicle stripes and the straw hat, the big one, to his double fisting. Like, it's been good for decades.
So Craig was saying he vaguely remembers, the U.S. Amateur or whatever. But that's vivid in my mind. My first exposure to Tiger. So his third U.S. Amateur, I would have been 12, I think. And Dad turning it on, and me coming into the room, and he's like, "Hey, come check this guy out. He's something special." And so. And it was just when he was down with a few to play, and Johnny Miller, they show it in the documentary. Johnny Miller makes the comment, if he doesn't make this one, he's got a lot of work to do. And he drops a bomb and then just unleashes this big fist pump. And I was my eyes were just like, what? As a golfer already, a junior golfer, I was like, that looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I was hooked, and the rest is history.
In terms of the doc, I think
I was gonna say, I feel like we're probably at the end of our review if we're just getting random Kevin Tiger stories now.
I could go on.
I think the score was pretty good. The U.S. Open at Pebble especially stood out. I think there was a kind of a tuba moment for Colin Montgomery that probably didn't make him feel good if he's watching it. That he got the tuba solo walking down Pebble Beach. But I think like the documentary was well made. The score, it went by really quickly. That 90 minutes.
Yeah. I'd say it's no Last Dance, but I'll definitely be tuning into episode 2.
Oh, see, I like this better than Last Dance. I mean, to me, Last Dance is totally poisoned by having MJ involved with the production of it.
Are you serious right now?
Are you serious?
Oh, I'm dead serious. I enjoyed Last Dance. It's just I don't know. Like, did you not feel like this was not exactly like a totally Michael Jordan telling the Michael Jordan story?
I feel like I got a call from you in the summer saying that you were watching the best sports documentary. I'm like, yeah, Craig, I'm watching it too. Like, it is the best sports documentary.
I thought it was great, but in terms of like a unbiased, like trying to, I'm thinking like Ken Burns telling me about the Civil War. That's like there's something that's entertaining to watch, and there's something where I feel like I'm getting the whole story, and I don't feel like you're getting the whole story in The Last Dance. I think you're getting Michael Jordan trying to justify why he's better than LeBron James in a 10-part or however many part series.
Wow.
I think that's a little bit true.
We might have to take this offline. I don't think that we're going to get to the bottom of this anytime soon.
I know when Ken Burns has dropped that we've reached near then. So, Kevin, the last 30 seconds of episode 1, like, what is that? Paint us a picture for episode 2. Because I have the name written down here. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but I think this is the first time that she's doing an on-camera interview about
Rachel Uchitel. Yeah.
You could tell. So, I can hear. You tell me.
I thought it was a great way to end.
It was a good way to end. It's definitely a little cliffhanger there. Well, I mean, the fall is going to come here pretty quick. What else do you want to?
She was the first one in the tabloids that had a connection.
Yeah.
Right?
So, she's. From what I understand, she was the VIP hostess that kind of enabled a lot of this stuff to happen. So
my wife was like, "Oh, so that's the mistress," and I'm like, "The mistress? This is awkward."
Yeah. So, I mean, we're gonna see the fall in episode 2, and then everything it kind of took for him to get back to the winner's circle. I'm assuming we'll see how far it goes. But,
yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
And I guess coming soon, our review of the Last Dance documentary series.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I guess we'll end it on that. Thanks again for listening, and make sure to check us out at grandstandgolf.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you like it, give us a review, give us a comment, and let us know what we're doing well, what we're doing bad, what we can improve on. But thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to talking more golf with you in the future. Take care.
See you guys.
Take care, guys.